Hey, welcome. So, have you ever found yourself wondering why a church with, billions in reserve would still ask its members to pay tithing? It's a really perceptive question that a lot of people have, and today we are going to unpack the answer, and it might not be what you think.
It really all kicks off with this one very logical, very fair question. Why tithe if the church is already so wealthy? And look, that's a completely fair question. But what's so fascinating is that the answer isn't really about the church's finances at all. Nope, it's about something totally different.
Okay, so to really get our heads around this, we have to kind of shift our perspective. We have to reframe the entire purpose of tithing. Let's just forget about the church's budget for a minute, because this is all about our personal spiritual growth. So on the surface, it's easy to see tithing as just a fundraiser, right? A way to keep the lights on and the buildings running. And yeah, sure, it definitely helps with that. But that's more of a side effect. At its very core, tithing isn't a financial transaction. It's an act of obedience. It's a spiritual law. I mean, this quote from way back in 1907 just nails it. Tithing is a law of revenue and a law of sacrifice. We tend to focus on the revenue part, the money going to the church. But the real point, the primary purpose, is the sacrifice, our act of giving. And that part, that's required of us whether the church has $1 billion or just one.
Think about it this way. God doesn't actually need our money. I mean, the whole world is already His. The sources we're looking at compare it to temple work. God could easily do all of that work Himself, but He invites us to participate. Why? For our spiritual development. Tithing follows that exact same principle.
So here's a helpful way to picture the funds. You've got tithing, which is like this flowing covenant stream, constantly funding the sacred day-to-day work of the church, temples, meeting houses, you name it. And then you have the reserves, which are more like a fortress, a massive financial shield built to protect the church against any future storms. Now this naturally leads to another huge question. If tithing is a law, is it, a forever thing? Or does it have some kind of expiration date? So will there ever come a day when tithing is just abolished? It's a popular idea you hear tossed around sometimes, but as we're about to see, the answer isn't a simple yes or no. The short answer is, well, not really. Prophets have never taught that it will simply be abolished one day. The real answer is way more nuanced, and honestly it points towards something much, much bigger.
Okay, to understand this, we first need to get this term down: standing law. Prophets, starting with Joseph Smith himself, have consistently taught that tithing is a standing law. And all that means is that it's in effect, it's binding until God Himself officially changes it through His prophet. Period.
But, and this is the other crucial piece of the puzzle, tithing is also called a preparatory law. It's not the final destination. You can think of it like a training ground for something even greater. So the question becomes, what is it preparing us for?
And this, right here, is where it all connects. That idea of a preparatory law points us directly toward what you could call an ultimate law.
And here it is. Tithing is the preparatory law. It's the law that's here to teach us sacrifice and discipline. It is specifically designed to get us ready as a people to live the ultimate law, which is the law of consecration, where we dedicate all of our time, all of our talents, and all of our resources to God's work. Now this quote right here, this is probably where that whole tithing will end someday idea comes from. And yes, he does say it would no longer be necessary, but there is a massive condition attached to that. This only happens when we are prepared to live the much, much higher law of consecration. So, let's just break this down into 3 super clear ideas. 1. Tithing is binding on us right here, right now. 2. It's a preparatory or lesser law. And 3, it wouldn't just disappear into thin air. It would be superseded by a higher, more demanding law. So how do we square that with Joseph Smith saying tithing is a standing law forever? Well, they actually work together perfectly. Think of it like this. Forever means it's the law in place until it gets upgraded to the higher, ultimate law of consecration. And this brings us right back to where we started. The commandment to tithe was never about the size of the church's financial portfolio. It has always been about our own spiritual portfolio. It's a divine tool to teach us sacrifice, and until God declares otherwise, it remains His standing preparatory law. So, we'll leave you with this to think about. If tithing is really all about the personal act of sacrifice, what does that teach us about the true role of money, whether we have a lot of it or just a little, in a life of faith? Thanks so much for joining us.